no choice but to move on. So it all started. I was probably about 10 years into my teaching career, and at the time, you had two different routes, especially as probably a young male in teaching. You had the opportunity to go higher and into leadership like quite quickly. I don't think I was ready for that. Or there was an alternative position available called an advanced skills teacher. So I put myself forward as an AST. It was a really funny day because people came in to watch me teach maths and English. They interviewed some of the parents to find out about my outcomes and the work that I'd done. Even though my absolute passion was PE and like personal, social, and health education. So I managed to get through that day. I was then, I suppose, involved in a group of elite teachers. We used to go around the county, modeling different elements of teaching. I don't want to sort of bore you with that element, but um, a lot of being able to go in and work with people and assess their starting points, even though in teaching, just really set me up to be able to, I suppose, do that with people in general, to just know where, if they're struggling in a certain area, where are they on their ladder? Are they starting right at the bottom? Have they done other work? I suppose a lot of my skills through the different elements of my career I've then brought together. Um, but it was at a certain point, probably about 13, 14 years into my career, that unfortunately the funding ended for that position. I did absolutely love it. So I had no option but to go into leadership. Now I've got 6 children now. I had 4 children at the time. And I remember that my twins must have been about 3 or 4 months old when I started. But I took a secondment at a school in Gloucester. I did a bit of a recce sort of on the weekend before and drove around high-rise flats. It was so different to the Forest of Dean. There were some flowers on a park where a young lad, I found out a bit later, had been stabbed 2 weeks before. And then I drove around to the school and there was like 6 foot fence, razor wire around the top. And I was thinking, oh Christ, what have I let myself in for? But I've always been a challenge person, and it probably got me into trouble a few times just because I don't know where to say no, or I don't stop and think about the impact on me. Um, but I then thought, I'm going to do this. One, I've got to safeguard my income, but two, I really want this challenge. So I went for my interview on the Monday, and I remember the head teacher asking me a range of questions, all about mainly about teaching. But then there was one question she asked me that would always stick with me. Um, and it was the question, Chris, how do you deal with stress? And I was like, I don't get stressed. I play football on a weekend. I can kick people. I can shout and stuff. I did not have a clue, mate. I'm telling you now, I did not have a clue the impact that stress had on other people, but also the impact that stress had on me. And I think I was really lucky at the time that I was playing football and I was really social. So I had those things, I suppose, in my toolbox that I was able to stay quite buoyant and be able to get things off my chest. But the more work I did there, I think the first week I was breaking up fights between parents on the playground, confiscating drugs, and different things. And it was just a massive, massive shock. And then the more I got to find out about how vulnerable the young people were, that's the bit that I wanted to make an impact on. But when you're in a school in special measures and every day it's maths and English, and I was saying, no, hang on, this is not what we should be focusing on here. The fundamentals are not maths and English. They're keeping yourself safe and knowing what to do in your community. We even had it one morning, a young lad come up to me, he must have been about 6 years of age. He said, hey, Mr. Powell, he said, see that lad over there? I was, yeah. He said, I was out trick-or-treating last night and he pulled a knife out on me and pinched on my sweets. And I'm thinking, how did you tackle that? What do you do within this school? And it was really, really tricky. And it got to the point where I was getting monitored so much on the maths and English that in the mornings, I started having huge anxiety attacks. And unless you've been there and experienced those, it's just, it's beyond not nice. You just can't function. So to get out of the house in the morning, I would get up for everybody in the house and go out. Just even getting to the car in the morning was excruciating. Then when I get in the car, I'd put the music up full blast to stop myself sort of talking myself out of it, thinking I could quite easily text to say, I'm ill today or not feeling it today. But I kept doing it. I kept going. There are even certain songs that come on the radio now that take me back to that time where I would drive in my car to work. And by the time I got to work at 7:30, I was absolutely hanging. I mean, I play 90 minutes of football and I'd be tired. I was absolutely hanging. but I would still do it. I'd get through a day. I remember even during those days, I would go and stand in the toilet for 5 minutes and think, what am I doing? I feel absolutely awful, but I'm still trying to do what I've got to do. But it got to one day where drove to Gloucester, pulled over and as the car park, thought, I can't do this anymore. It was a bit like Superman, kryptonite around his neck,
All right.
thinking, why would a person like me, really confident, love what they do, not be able to get to work? And it was that point. I went home, went to the doctor and said, I just need a bit of space, mate. And that was my exact words to
I
him.
can't lie.
Yeah.
We've had this conversation before, and I know what school you're talking about because I actually grew up like within that area. I did. I went to the school that was like across the other one. Went to the other
And
school.
it's not for the fact that you don't want to help, is that you're trying to help too much.
Yeah.
But because that focus is not on that, it is an absolute killer. And so I ended up having like nearly 9 months off work. And it was at that time that Andy came in and said, "Oh, what are you up to now?" And I was, "Oh, mate," I said, "I'm off work. I really am lost." I was really, really, really lucky because I have got another group of people that I've worked with while I've been in schools, who were the Healthy Schools team. Absolutely amazing group of individuals. I suppose they're brought from the same mold as me. They're just so passionate about sort of the safeguarding in schools and that element of it. So I did go back into teaching, not necessarily in classes, but monitoring the outcomes of health within schools. So I did that just to start off with. And it was a bit like dipping my toe in the water and not knowing how my brain was going to respond. Because even now, if we've got a school meeting where I know I need to go in or deliver something in front of a class, the way my brain reacts to that is no different to how it was 6 or 7 years ago. And I don't think that will ever change. And if it's booked in the diary, even if it's in a month's time, my mind is already thinking about it. And it's weird, isn't it? So I set up things now, and this might sound a bit silly, but I sort of reward myself if I go through a day and I know it's been a really tough day. I do take 5 minutes out of the end of the day to say, well done, boy, you've done well there today. Because no one else will sort of tell you that, but you just learn to manage yourself and be where you are. So then that's the step into bespoke mentoring. Was all from that. It was out of adversity. It was out of having to be unbelievably resilient. I don't think anybody really understood what I'd gone through, apart from myself. But then it was me that put those steps in to come out the other way. And that's why I feel so comfortable now just being around other people that are struggling, because I know they can make a difference when they're ready. And that's what I do. I absolutely love it. It's not like work, mate.